The pain is still new. You can feel it like a fresh bruise, tender, throbbing, impossible to ignore. Maybe it's the absence of a voice that once filled your mornings, the hollow space where a laugh used to be. Maybe it's the weight of a dream, unraveling the future you had clutched so tightly, now slipping through your fingers like smoke. Or perhaps it's the silence left behind by someone who will never speak again. Whatever it is, it hurts. And your first instinct is to fight it, to push it away, to bargain with it, to drown it out with distractions, or numb it with anything that promises relief. You clench your fists against it, as if you could hold back the tide of grief with sheer will. But here's the thing about pain. The tighter you grip it, the deeper it burns. Imagine holding a burning ember in your palm. Your instinct is to squeeze, to contain the heat, to stop it from spreading. But what happens? The fire only sears deeper. The pain intensifies. Your skin blisters not from the ember itself, but from your refusal to let it go. Now, imagine opening your hand. The ember falls. The air cools the burn. The wound remains, yes, but it is no longer being fed by resistance. This is the first lesson. Suffering is not just in the loss, but in the war you wage against it. The ache is inevitable. The agony is optional. So here's the question, whispered into the raw space of your grief. What if you stopped fighting it, not to make it disappear, not to pretend it doesn't matter, but to let it be what it is, a wound that will heal only when allowed to breathe? What if, just for this moment, you stopped clenching? You are standing in the river, not beside it, not watching from the safety of the shore in it. The current tugs at your ankles, your knees, your hips, relentless in its movement. You plant your feet, muscles straining, fingers curled into fists at your sides. You tell yourself that if you just hold still, if you just resist hard enough, the water will have no choice but to bend to your will. But the river does not stop. It never has. It flows around you, over you, pulling at the edges of your resolve. The more you fight, the heavier your limbs become. The water is not your enemy. It is the weight of your own resistance that drags you down. You are exhausted, breath-ragged, yet still you cling to the idea that you can control this. That if you just hold on a little longer, a little tighter, the past will return to you. It won't. Memories are not anchors. They are leaves on the surface, already carried downstream. The love you lost, the person who is gone, the version of yourself you thought you'd be none of them, can be held in place by sheer force of will. The river does not care how badly you want things to stay. It only moves, and so you have a choice. Keep fighting and drown in the effort, or open your hands to notice where they are clenched. Is it around the ghost of a voice you can no longer hear? The shape of a future that will never be? The desperate, clawing hope that if you just try harder, the universe will reverse itself? Your hands ache from gripping what is already gone. What would happen if you loosened your hold? Not to forget, not to abandon, but to stop pretending you can freeze time? The river will flow either way. The only difference is whether you let yourself float. So tell me, where are you holding on? And what is it costing you to refuse the current? You have been bracing against the tide for so long. You've forgotten what it feels like to stand without trembling. Every muscle is taut, every breath shallow, as if grief were an enemy you could outlast through sheer endurance. But grief is not a storm to be weathered. It is the ocean itself, vast and indifferent to your resistance. The harder you push, the more it pushes back. Watts once likened sorrow to the tide. It rises. It falls, but only when allowed its natural rhythm. Try to hold it back, and it crashes over you in violent, suffocating waves. Let it come, and it will recede in its own time, leaving behind not ruin, but the quiet erosion of what no longer serves you. Can you feel it now? The weight of all that. Unshed salt water inside you? The way your ribs ache from the pressure of keeping it contained? There is a moment, just before surrender, when the body betrays the mind's stubbornness. Your hands shake. Your jaw clenches. Your shoulders curl forward as if to shield the raw, pulsing center of your grief. These are not signs of weakness. They are the body's quiet rebellion against the lie that you can control this, that you should. What would happen if you stopped bracing? Imagine standing at the shoreline as the wave approaches, not running, not hardening, but letting your knees soften as the water rushes in. It will knock you off your feet. It will fill your mouth with the taste of loss, and then it will retreat, not because you forced it to, but because tides do what tides have always done. The challenge is not to endure the wave, but to stop pretending you can command it, to stop measuring your strength by how long you can hold your breath underwater. Can you let it wash over you? Not as defeat, but as the first act of trust in the tide, in time, in the quiet knowing that you will not dissolve beneath the weight of what you feel. The ocean does not drown you, only your refusal to float. So here, in the dark, with the salt of your own tears on your lips, unclench your fists. Let the wave come. And when it does, remember, you are not holding the water. You are being held. You reach for it, again and again, the belief that things should last, that love, once found, is a fixed star, that the body you wake in today will be the same one you recognize tomorrow, that the ground beneath your feet is solid, unchanging. You build your life on this illusion like a house on sand, then wonder why the walls tremble and the tide comes in. But here is the truth, whispered in the spaces between your ribs. Nothing is built to stay. Look at your own hand, the skin that stretches over your knuckles, the pulse fluttering at your wrist. None of it is the same as it was a decade ago. Cells have died and been replaced. Scars have faded. Calluses have formed and softened. You are not a statue, but a river wearing its own banks away. Watts once compared life to a flame flickering, hungry, beautiful precisely because it cannot last. Try to cage it in glass, and it suffocates. Clutch at it, and your palms come away, burned and empty. The flame does not apologize for its nature. It simply burns bright and transient until the wind changes or the wax runs out. Breathe in. Hold it. Now release. That, too, is a lesson. The air that fills your lungs is already leaving you, making space for what comes next. You cannot hoard a single breath any more than you can nail a cloud to the sky. Watch the trees outside your window. The leaf that clings to the branch today will be gone tomorrow, not because the tree has failed, but because the leaf has finished its work. It does not begrudge the fall. It does not rage against the season. It simply lets go when the time comes, making way for new growth beneath the snow. This is not nihilism. This is liberation. The house you thought was permanent, one day it will be dust. The face you love, already changing in the soft, inexorable way of all living things. The grief that feels endless, it too is passing through you, a storm cloud drifting across the sky of your mind. You mourn because you believed in anchors. but the ocean does not need them to remain the ocean. So here is the invitation. Notice the small impermanences, the steam rising from your tea, the shadow sliding across the floor as the sun moves, the way laughter dissolves into silence almost. As soon as it leaves your lips, nothing is wrong. Nothing is broken. This is simply how light works. It dances, then disappears, leaving your eyes adjusted to the dark. The flame will gutter out. The river will dry up. The leaf will fall. And you will learn to love the burning. You have spent so long holding on, you've forgotten how to release. Your fingers ache from their grip on memories, on expectations, on the ghost of what used to be. Your jaw is tight, your shoulders braced as if against an invisible weight. Even your breath is shallow, as though you fear that inhaling too deeply might unravel the fragile control you've fought so hard to maintain. But here is the secret. Letting go is not something you do. It is something you stop doing. Think of a flower at dawn. It does not force itself open, straining petal by petal against the night. It simply softens, allowing the sun to coax it into bloom. There is no effort in its unfurling, only the quiet surrender to what is already happening. Now, bring your attention to your hands. Feel the tension coiled in your knuckles, the way your fingertips press into your palms. You are holding something even now. What is it? The echo of a voice? The shape of a future you can't bear to release? Do not force your fingers open. That, too, is a kind of resistance. Instead, imagine warmth spreading through your hands, like sunlight melting frost. Notice how, without any command from you, your muscles begin to loosen. The release is already happening. You need only allow it to move to your jaw. So much unsaid words, so many swallowed screams, stored here in the hinge of bone. Let your teeth part slightly. Feel the weight of your tongue resting in your mouth, no longer pressed against the roof in silent vigilance. Now, the breath. You have been breathing as if it were a negotiation, shallow sips of air, as though afraid to take up too much space. Let your next inhale fill you completely, expanding your ribs like sails catching the wind. Then exhale, not with a push, but with a sigh, as if your body were a leaf settling onto still water. This is not a technique. It is an undoing. You are not peeling your fingers away from what you've lost. You are noticing, moment by moment, how your body knows how to release when you stop telling it to cling. Like petals opening, like a fist becoming a palm. Like the way water, when cupped in your hands, eventually finds its way back to the river. So do not try to let go, simply stop trying to hold on. Here's the paradox. The moment you try to let go, you've already tightened your grip. Think of it like sleep. The harder you chase it, the more it eludes you. You count sheep, regulate your breath, darken the room only to lie there, wide-eyed, frustration coiled in your chest. But when you stop striving, when you surrender to the simple weight of your body on the mattress, sleep comes like a tide, effortless and unbidden. Surrender works the same way. It is not an action, but a cessation. Not a doing, but an undoing. Watts once described it as exhaling fully, not forcing the breath out, but allowing the lungs to empty naturally, like water draining from cupped hands. There is no technique to it, no step-by-step ritual, only the quiet recognition that you've been holding your breath for years. So let's try this now. Sit still. Feel the air moving in and out of your body. Notice the places where you're clenched, the subtle tension in your shoulders, the way your toes curl slightly as if bracing for impact. Now, imagine sinking into deep water, not the frantic flailing of someone fighting the surface, but the slow, inevitable descent of a stone through a still pond. There is no resistance here, no struggle, only gravity doing what gravity has always done. Your grief is the water. Your resistance is the thrashing. What happens when you stop? The water buoys you. The current carries you. The weight you feared would drown you becomes the very thing that lets you float. This is the heart of it. Surrender is not passive. It is not resignation. It is the active choice to stop fighting. What is already true? You cannot force the ember to cool. You cannot command the tide to retreat. You cannot unclench your fists by sheer will, because will is the problem, so don't try to let go. Instead, notice where you're holding the memories you replay like a broken record, the future you keep rewriting in your mind, the unspoken, words rotting on your tongue. Then, like an exhale, you didn't realize you were holding release, not because you've solved the pain, but because you've finally stopped arguing with it. The water will hold you. All you have to do is stop fighting. The depth. You are afraid of the pain, not just its sharpness, not just its weight, but what might happen if you stop resisting it, if you let it in fully, without flinching, without armor. The fear whispers, if you stop fighting, it will consume you. If you surrender, you will never resurface. But what if the pain is not a monster? What if it is a fire? Watts once stood at the edge of a wildfire-ravaged forest, the earth still smoldering beneath his feet. The trees were blackened skeletons, the underbrush reduced to ash. Yet when he knelt, brushing his fingers through the soot, he found green. Shoots already pushing through the char. Life not in spite of the flames, but because of them. The fire had not destroyed the forest. It had cleared the way for what needed to grow. Your grief is like that, the parts of you that burn, the memories that ache, the love that lingers like a phantom limb, are not enemies. They are the purifying blaze, incinerating what no longer serves you, the illusions you clung to, the expectations that weighed you down, the version of yourself that could only exist in the before. You think the fire will leave you hollow, but it is only making space. Consider this. The wound you fear will never heal is already healing. The moment the knife withdraws, the body begins. Its work closing, rebuilding, transforming damage into scar tissue. You do not have to force it. You do not have to command your cells to knit themselves back together. You need only stop picking at the stitches. So let the fire burn, not as punishment, but as alchemy. Let it reduce what was to ash, so that what remains is unshakable. The love that was real, the lessons that were true, the self that survives, not in spite of the flames, but because of them. Beneath the blistering heat, something is already stirring. You cannot see it yet, but it is there, green and tender and impossibly alive, reaching for the light through the cracks in her scorched earth. One day, you will stand in the ruins of what burned, and realize the fire was not the end, it was the beginning. You are falling, not the slow, drifting kind, the kind where the ground rushes up to meet you, where your stomach lurches into your throat, where every instinct screams to flail, to grasp, to stop. But what if you didn't? What if the terror isn't in the fall itself, but in the desperate belief that you should not be falling? That the ground is your enemy, the inevitable crash a punishment for letting go? Watts asks you to consider this. Gravity is not cruel. It is the most faithful force in the universe. It does not judge how you fall. It does not resent your weight. It simply holds you, inexorably, unshakably, as you hurtle through the air. Fear isn't in the descent, it's in the bracing. The locked knees, the clenched jaw, the arms thrown up to shield yourself from impact, as if tension could soften the landing, as if fighting the fall could change its outcome. But here's the truth. You cannot fall wrong. A leaf does not agonize over its trajectory. A raindrop does not curse the sky for releasing it. They surrender to the pull, knowing without knowing that the descent is not the end, but a necessary arc in the shape of their existence. So what if you stopped seeing the ground as a threat? What if the point isn't to land safely, but toefully? To feel the wind screaming past your ears, the weightlessness in your ribs, the sheer, terrifying aliveness of having nothing beneath your feet? Trust is not in the landing. It's in the letting go. Close your eyes. Imagine yourself mid-fall, the earth still distant. Notice the instinct to stiffen, to resist. Now imagine relaxing into it, your muscles softening, your breath unspooling, your body yielding to the pull like a prayer. The ground will come either way. The only choice is whether you meet it with fists or open palms. So tell me, what if falling isn't failure? What if it's the first act of faith? There is a moment just after the release, just before the landing, when the weightlessness takes you. It is not what you expected. You thought surrender would feel like defeat, like the hollow aftermath of a battle lost. But instead, there is a strange lightness, as if the very air has become buoyant beneath you. The wind rushes past, not as an adversary, but as an old friend whispering, "See, you are never falling. You are being carried." Watts invites you to imagine yourself as a leaf, not a leaf torn violently from the branch, not one that clings until the last possible second, but one that loosens its hold when the breeze comes, trusting the stem to release it at the perfect angle. There is no struggle in its descent, no attempt to direct its path. It simply lets go, spinning lazily through the air, catching the light as it drifts toward the earth. This is the secret. The leaf does not fear the fall because it knows itself to be part of the wind. And you have been bracing for impact. So long, you've forgotten what it feels like to simply descend, to let gravity do what it was always meant to do, not to punish you, but to return you to the ground of your being. The tension in your shoulders, the clench of your stomach, the way you hold your breath, as if it could suspend you mid or none of it, changes the trajectory. It only makes the fall heavier. So exhale. Feel the moment when resistance gives way to motion, when the fight drains from your limbs, leaving only the quiet certainty that you are still here, still whole, even as the earth rises to meet you. This is not passivity. This is not resignation. This is the courage to stop pretending. You can control the descent. The leaf does not choose where it lands. Neither do you. But in the space between branch and soil, there is an entire sky to move through, an entire journey to witness. Close your eyes again. Feel the weightlessness that comes when you stop bracing, the way your body knows instinctively how to align itself with the air, the way the wind supports you even as it pulls you downward. You are not falling. You are floating. And when the ground finally appears beneath you, it will not be the crash you feared, but the gentle press of earth against your back, solid, forgiving, ready to receive you. So let go. Not because you've stopped caring, but because you've finally understood. The fall was never the danger. The clinging was. The storm has passed, not with a fanfare, not with a resolution tied neatly in ribbon, but with a slow exhale, the kind that leaves the air lighter, the sky washed clean. You stand in the aftermath, not as a victor, but as someone who has simply stopped fighting. Watts would call this space the quiet after. It is not empty. It is not barren. It is alive with something subtler than joy, deeper than relief, a stillness that hums beneath your ribs like the echo of a bell. The grief is still there, but it has changed shape. No longer a knife in your side, but a scar you run your fingers over absently, remembering how it got there without flinching. You notice small things now. The way sunlight pulls on the floor in the late afternoon, liquid gold. The sound of rain against the window, not as a melancholy soundtrack, but as a reminder that the world keeps turning. The warmth of a cup between your palms, the steam curling upward like a whispered secret. None of these things fix what was broken. They do not bring back what you lost. But they remind you that life is not a problem to be solved. It is a moment to be lived, one breath at a time. Watts once described this as the space between waves. You have been so focused on bracing for the next crash that you forgot the ocean also knows how to be still. The water stretches out before you, vast and calm, reflecting the sky like a mirror. You are not the same person you were before the storm. How could you be? The winds have reshaped you, sanded down your sharp edges, left you softer in some places, and stronger in others. You no longer fear the rain, because you have learned you will not dissolve beneath it. You no longer cling to the shore, because you have felt the buoyancy of your own body in deep water. This is not an ending. It is an arrival, a return to yourself, not the before self, not the after self, but the one that exists here, now, in this quiet expanse of possibility. You take a step forward, then another. The ground holds you. The air moves through you. The light, golden and unburdened, spills across your path. Now you are light enough to move again.